Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Herzlich willkommen bei der ersten Pressekonferenz der Erste Group unter der Leitung unseres CEO Bernd Spalt. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first press conference of Erste Group under the leadership of our new CEO, Bernd Spalt. We are going to present you our financial results for 2019, our board here, as well the outlook for 2020, and we'll open the floor for questions towards the end. Before that, Mr. Spalt will introduce the team and talk about their priorities. Speaking of introduction, my name is Carmen Staicu. I'm the spokesperson of Erste Group and responsible with the housekeeping for today's press conference. Herr Spalt, ich darf Ihnen das Wort übergeben.
Ja, vielen Dank. Herzlich willkommen, meine Damen und Herren. Ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie hier sind. Willkommen zur Pressekonferenz. Ich würde gerne beginnen, damit mein Team vorzustellen. Ich fange an mit Peter Bossek, den muss ich niemandem vorstellen. Peter Bossek ist unser CEO von der Erste Bank Österreich und auf der Gruppenebene fürs Retail-Geschäft verantwortlich. Ingo Bleier ist unser Vorstand fürs Firmenkundengeschäft und für Markets. Die Alexandra Habeler-Drabeck ist unsere Chief Risk Officerin. Stefan Dörfler muss ich auch nicht vorstellen, war lange CEO in Österreich und ist jetzt unser Finanzvorstand auf Gruppenebene. Ara Abrahamian, ein neues Gesicht für Sie, ist unser Chief Digital Transformation Officer. Er wird uns helfen, die digitale Transformation der Bank, wo wir schon weit gekommen sind, noch weiter zu treiben. Und David Omani ist verantwortlich für unsere IT und für unsere Operations. Das hier ist die erste Pressekonferenz nach Andreas Streichel. Und lassen Sie mich vielleicht beginnen damit, Andreas Streichel hat diese Bank in einem wirklich ausgezeichneten Zustand übergeben. Es ist eine große Ehre für uns und auch eine große Verantwortung für uns, das zu übernehmen, was er aufgebaut hat. Und wir werden auf dem weiterbauen und das weiter betreiben, was er angefangen hat. Banking und die Bankenbranche als solche steht vor sehr, sehr großen Herausforderungen in diesen Tagen. Wir haben ein negatives Zinsumfeld im Euro und ich glaube, wir sind alle einer Meinung, dass die Vorteile einer negativen Zinsumgebung die Nachteile keineswegs überwiegen. Kunden nehmen deswegen nicht mehr Kredite auf und Kunden finden es schwieriger, Vermögen aufzubauen. Es verändert sich die Technologie sehr stark, wie man sieht. Die digitale Transformation macht vor keiner Branche Halt. Und es verändern sich auch die Erwartungen aller Stakeholder an uns als Bank. Wir haben letztes Jahr das Glück gehabt, unseren 200-jährigen Geburtstag zu feiern. Und wir haben auch sehr viel letztes Jahr darüber gesprochen, wo kommen wir eigentlich her. In unserer Gründungsurkunde 200 Jahre zuvor ist festgeschrieben worden, dass unser Auftrag ist, Wohlstand für alle zu unterstützen. Und für alle heißt nicht nur für unsere Investoren, sondern auch für unsere Kunden, für unsere Mitarbeiter und auch unsere Rolle zu finden im allgemeinen Aufbau von Wohlstand für die Region, in der wir tätig sind. Das ist der Kontext, in dem wir arbeiten, das ist unser Auftrag, den wir haben und den wir auch in Zukunft haben werden. Viele Themen, die jetzt ganz groß auf der Tagesordnung sind, sind Themen, die nie wieder weggehen. Klimaschutz ist ein solches Thema, auch in dem Sinn, dass große Unternehmen wie wir unsere Verantwortung hier sehen und unsere Position hier ausbauen werden und viele andere Themen auch. Im ganzen Kontext von, was sind unsere strategischen Prioritäten, gibt es drei große Richtungen. Das eine ist Wachstum. Wir sind in einer Region tätig in Europa, die sehr, sehr dynamisch wächst. Wir haben, als wir 1997 an die Börse gegangen sind, gesagt, wir wollen im östlichen Teil der Europäischen Union
in the eastern part of the European Union we want to expand because these countries will join the EU and the convergence path goes towards the Western European average and this will give us growth as well. And this has materialized over the past years, and it will continue. The growth rates in these countries are twice as high as in the average Eurozone area, and this growth will continue, and we'll see our opportunities there. Second strategic focus is digitalization. Via George, digitalization is in our DNA. We started George as a platform, a cross-border platform, and will provide it to all our countries. We're the only bank that has its platform with one technology. And third, of course, efficiency, where income flows are redirected, where the interest environment will not change for the years to come. So we have to look at our cost structure. And in production, not only in customer-facing, but in also producing our offers, we have to be more digital. So these are the three mainstays that we have. The priorities in an environment where we are, of course, responsible to our stakeholders and are well aware of this. We're going to give you the results for 2019, and I'm quite proud of this. I'd like to introduce this in the context of the region where we are active. The real GDP growth in our countries has risen considerably. Growth leader was Hungary with 4.9% GDP growth. On average, we are between 2 and 4%. For this year, this development will go on. Needless to say that we move in an economic cycle that is quite mature, so the growth is a bit dampened in all of Europe, and we don't need the coronavirus for this, mind you. This is what we see overall. In other words, the economic growth will go down slightly, but the growth is still stable because of very robust public finance. Why is this so important? Growth alone, if it's only supported by consumption and short-term one-off effects, is not sustainable. And if the public finance is not strong, then it cannot be kept up. If you look at the Maastricht limit of our countries, you see at the budget deficit side that is okay, and also the indebtedness is okay. So we have a very robust starting point, and we are quite competitive in these countries. It's not so much based on low-cost production, but it's based on better technology and exports to high-tech. In these countries, we have very low unemployment rates. We have practically full employment. The real wages are rising, which is expressed in better consumer behavior and consumer confidence, and the trust of consumers to invest money at a time of negative interest rates. This is, of course, becoming more and more difficult. One of our core tasks, together with our politicians, is, of course, to create the right basis so that the capital markets will function well, and that there are options for a broad number of people to invest for a longer period of time in order to build up assets. The interest environment, if you look at the Eurozone, this has come to stay, unfortunately. We are in the negative interest rates. We're quite sure that there will be no short-term turnaround. Unfortunately, we are not only active in the Eurozone. The currencies in other countries have positive interest rate environments. The Czech Republic, for instance, had an increase by 25 basis points. Which helps us with our core business. But on the whole, this interest rate environment is a major challenge for investments for financial services and customers. How has our result improved? Look at the year-on-year development. We had an extremely strong operating result last year, and in this environment that I've described, an 8.7 increase could be achieved in our operating result. There are not very many banks in Europe that could achieve this. And this is, of course, driven by classical core customer business, loan business on the one hand, deposit business on the other hand. And it's this core business that supports our operating result. At the same time, our net profit looks worse than in the year before. And this is exclusively driven by one-off effects that reflect the crystallization of political risk. For instance, Hungary doubled the bank tax last year, so we have to pay more. But the fair value had to be, and goodwill had to be depreciated. 165 million euros had to be written off. 150 million had to be made as a provision because of the Romanian Savings Bank. So the extremely strong operating result was influenced by this. The basic performance of the Erste Bank is great, and there is no reason to assume that it shouldn't go on in a positive way. So in all, the operating result is positive. As I said, the one-off effects, and thanks to our staff to have achieved something that is not self-explanatory.
Now I'd like to hand over to our CFO, who is going to present the figures. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Following up what CEO Bernd Spalt just said, I'd like to show you this diagram. It reflects what we mean by healthy growth. I'd like to mention 3 points. Credit growth, of course, needs to be financed, and when you look at the figures, you will find out that it's an 11 billion increase in net loans originated and customer deposits. So growth is being financed by customer deposits and translate into loans originated. And this is what we regard as healthy growth. We've been growing across all countries. You will remember years when we had strong growth in some countries and a decline in others. This was not the case in 2019. We had excellent growth, not only across all countries, but also across all core segments of the business, which is much more sustainable and healthier than selective growth. There is a third aspect which will be referred to in greater detail later on. Growth is only healthy if asset quality is high. All the figures my colleague will be showing later on show that we are in very good shape in this respect. And last but not least, it's decisive for us that growth generates earnings. You already saw our overall result, but let me come back to our operating result. Here you can see a comparison of operating income and operating expenses. Let me say a few words about the cost side. An increase by 100 million euro plus 2.4%. For the Austrians amongst us, this is approximately the range by which wages and salaries have increased. In most Central and Eastern European countries, salaries and wages rose much more strongly, which is, of course, a cost burden for us. So in a highly dynamic environment, we were able to be very disciplined in terms of costs, and cost increases were contained within a reasonable range. Our net operating result, 8.7%, was already mentioned, and the cost-income ratio is something the new managing board is working on intensively. At our Capital Markets Day, we gave a guidance of 55% cost-income ratio for 2025. It's an enormous challenge which depends on costs and income, and we will be challenged to further increase our earnings. We have set ourselves this target, and 2019 certainly was a positive step in this direction. One-off effects were already mentioned. Here you can see the difference between 2018 and 2019. This is the sum total of the two effects already mentioned by Mr. Spalt. The only positive thing is that this is not going to be repeated in 2020, and we are confident of being able to generate a higher net result in 2020 compared to 2019. In my final diagram, I'd like to focus on a crucial target pursued by the bank. This is due not least to the regulatory environment, but also due to the fact that we are convinced that a strong capital position fosters long-term growth and is of crucial importance for the region. This figure refers to Basel III, fully loaded. We are at 13.7 for 2019. What's the decisive point with regard to the capital ratio? It's absolutely essential to be able to meet all regulatory requirements comfortably. We're doing that, and the buffer is big enough, and it's being welcomed by the regulator. And we hope to continue along these lines in the coming years because we want to pursue our business without having to worry about that. The second point is that growth needs capital. In the future, we are going to invest capital in our activities. And the third important point is payout, distribution of profits to our investors through dividends. The 3 points are equally important. It's not shown on this slide, but we know that we are planning to propose a dividend of 1.5 euro for 2019, which corresponds exactly to our dividend policy. With this, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and I hand over to Alexandra Habel-Trabeck. Good morning. In my capacity as Chief Risk Officer of Erste Bank, I can look back on an excellent year. The risk situation has remained positive in the second half of the year. This means we're growing, our business is healthy, our portfolio quality is high, and costs of risk are low. So what does that mean in concrete figures? In 2019, we had cost of risks of, in fact, we set up provisions in the amount of 39 million. We're no longer releasing provisions, but 39 million is still very low. Why are our costs of risk so low? We had hardly any new defaults and a high level of repayment. Moreover, in numerous cases, we could we saw customers recovering from non-performing loans to a healthy business. Our NPL volume is also developing very well. This is the percentage of defaulted loans. Our NPL ratio has dropped to 2.5%. This is the lowest ever reported by Erste Group since its IPO in 1997. This is a very fortunate trend across all countries. The NPL ratio has dropped everywhere. In the Czech Republic, it has remained stable at a very good level. The NPL volume in absolute term is also going down. The NPL coverage ratio, that is the extent to which the NPL rate volume is covered by provisions, has gone up, and it's already at 77.1%. 2020, I'm sure, is going to be a challenging year, but from the Chief Risk Officer's point of view, I can tell you that with our good portfolio quality and our low NPL volume, we are very well positioned to face and address these challenges. And now I hand over to my colleague, Mr. Bleier. Ladies and gentlemen, where does our growth come from? It comes from customer business, primarily from corporate customer business. Last year, the total credit volume increased to 55 billion. This is 9% more year on year. So for the first time, we generated an operating result of 1.1 billion in corporate customer business, which is an important contribution to our overall result. An important driver of growth is our business with SMEs across the entire regions. So we see SME business grow in all industries, in all sectors, in all countries. When you look at the individual segments, you will see that in technology, media, telecommunication, growth is highest. As regards our capital market business, we generated an operating result of almost 300 million euro. We have almost 200 capital market mandates. We support customers who issue bonds or raise capital, so we're supporting them very effectively. We're also strong in asset management. We have 64 billion euro assets under management, and despite the low level of interest through mixed funds, we do see an increase in assets under management. Demand for sustainable investment products has increased in particular. And with this, I hand over to Peter Wossek for a private business. Good morning. The slide which you can see here reflects what Bernd and Stefan said at the beginning. What is particularly satisfactory for us is that this reflects our strategy. As you just saw, over the past 5 years, we saw an increase in wages and salaries in Central and Eastern Europe by almost 60%. That is reflected in our business result. It was always our strategy to rely on convergence. Of course, it's true, it's a burden on the salary side, but we're happy to see that our employees are earning more. So we saw an 8% rise in mortgages, a 6% rise in retail deposits, in bank assurance, an increase by 5.2%, asset under management, 11% increase. Last year was a good year on the capital market, I should add. A few words about George. We are still in the process of rollout, which takes longer than we originally thought. I would have thought that a rollout would take 2 years, but 2020 we will get it done. Excluding Serbia, we're not there yet because we have no major integration project there. What you can see here, the beta is not the suggestion to replace George by a rather strange pronunciation of my first name. It's just that things still have to be done there. The use of Apple Pay was extremely satisfactory. Because of the contract situation with Apple, we can't disclose the real figures, the detailed figures, but we've been able to win a considerable number of new customers. So we're very close to the global developments, and first estimates tell us that Apple Pay in 2 to 3 years will account for 10% of payment transfers worldwide. That's really interesting, particularly against the background that the European Commission is now considering focusing more strongly on payment transfer infrastructure. So in the coming 12 to 18 months, we're not going to go to Germany with George. We are focusing rather on the implementation of additional functionalities. And the market situation in Germany has changed rather drastically. What we can see there is intensive competition between the challenger banks, and they are increasing the number of countries. We take quite some time to cover 7 countries, but they cover 1 country per week, but they exit quickly from these countries, and that has brought us a pace of development where you really have to wait and see if the infrastructure can catch up with the pace of the challenger banks. We're also seeing a convergence of business models. ING is the 3rd biggest bank in Germany, and they are adjusting their business model to that of others. So there is going to be a convergence of business models, and I think we're well advised to intensify our own USP. And once the market situation is clarified, we can think about what else to do. Perhaps a quick outlook to what we intend to do in retail in 2020. We're going to support our customers in building assets, and regardless of someone can save 30 or 200 euros per month, we know the current market situation is a challenge. No one can tell us if it's going to take another week or 2 with the coronavirus. Is that a global development? The corona issue has shown that global delivery chains are more fragile than we thought. The virus has had a bigger impact than President Trump, although I would call him a virus too. But I'm optimistic as far as the coming years are concerned. Investment business is not something you do in order to generate short-term profits, but to build up assets in the long time. Why am I optimistic? It's the sustainability issue. Europe and China are the only regions in the world that are focusing on this topic. The ECB will come up with regulations that force banks to direct their capital allocation in that direction. No one believes that Europe is going to build the next Amazon or Google, but if we succeed with capital allocation in green technology, it will be a good thing for all of us. And I hope that I'm right in that.
So, in aller Kürze.
So, very briefly, a quick outlook. I said already that we expect a slight decline in economic activities, 1.3% in Austria, for the other countries of the regions, between 2 and 4% growth. The operating result is extremely important for us. It's our ambition to further improve our operating result, to be disciplined on the cost side. This is based on net interest income and net fee and commission income, and the guided objective for 2024 is a cost-income ratio of 55%. So we'll continue to grow in our loan portfolio in the single-digit range, and the cost of risk situation will be around 20 basis points for this year. As regards the capital structure, we now have a CET1 ratio of 13.7%. This is something we are very comfortable with, and that is important for our investors and for the regulator. And we intend to continue growing profitably and to further improve our capital structure. Over the past 5 years, we had a return on equity in the double-digit range. Not many banks can claim that for themselves. We're proud of that, and we want to remain in the double-digit range in return on equity. Earnings per share or profit distribution per share. Last year, we are going to pay out €1.5. That's what we are going to propose to the AGM this year. Thank you very much. We're now willing to take your questions.
Ja.
Zuerst einmal eine ganz
A very basic question. At the beginning, you said you want to build up on what Andreas Streichel has left behind over the past 20 years. So, what will change in the Erste Group under your management and leadership? Well, I told you about our strategic thrust. We decided for a specific region, and Andreas Streichel decided on this in 1997 with the IPO. Since the eastern part of the European Union will not change this, will not enter big new markets, because I think the growth opportunities in our region are very intact and long-term. I very strongly believe in this. I spent a lot of time in these countries. We will see organic growth from which we profit. Over the next years, there will be consolidation potentials. Banks will be up for sale. Business portfolios will be up for sale. So this inorganic growth, these opportunities that are opening up, will certainly be looked at. So growth will not only be organic, but also inorganic in our region. And we'll focus on this. And of course, if all this fits into our core business, then we'll also think of acquisitions. The only market that we are missing in Central and Eastern Europe is our core market, is Poland. A newly emerged opportunity, the mBank, we took a close look at this. Why did we do that? Because we've always said that Poland is part of our core market, is an interesting market, is a non-euro market. And in this interest environment, this is important, and it's a growing market. So we decided not to continue along these lines. But the region will remain as it is and will continue to grow and will look at opportunities if they're opening up. What are we facing? The further development of our digitalization. This is a hot issue because digitalization not only front end, but also end to end in our processes to create a digital bank. This is not only a technical effort, this is also a major challenge. What competencies do we need? What do our employees need? How can we best support them in transforming this bank? Second question, tying in with your last sentence, more digitalization in the background. And you want to put the cost-income ratio to 55%. Your competitors also have concrete savings programs to cut on employees. Will you reach your target without any cuts? Well, the cost-income ratio of 55% is something that doesn't just happen like this. In other words, we'll look into the structure of things. It doesn't mean that you take something away here and there, but the idea is how can I better position myself? How can I avoid redundancies? How can I make processes more efficient? So this is a very specific approach. This is a programmatic approach that we take. It's not a program where we want to cut down on employees. It's just a new way of thinking. What will our business in future be like? With Poland, I didn't quite understand this. You talked about this concrete target, this company that is up for sale, or is it also the political risk that comes into play? And is this why Poland is not such an interesting market for you? Poland as a market remains interesting, no question. But the political risk that is present is inseparably linked to our region. For almost 3 decades, I've been working in this region. Political risk came up in every shape and form, but it's part of our business model. To give you a concrete answer, the decision not to engage in this acquisition has specific reasons and no market reasons. I have 3 questions. On Poland, you said you will not go into new big markets. Poland is the only interesting one. In your introduction, you said that the expectation of the stakeholders changes. Maybe you can comment on this. And with the banking tax in Czechoslovakia, is there yet another danger where this rise in the bank tax may occur as well in 2020? Let me start with the last one. I cannot see any direction. Last year, we had an intensive discussion on this in Romania. The banking tax that started very badly with massive interference in the banking results, which in the end were reduced. So we had this consolidation process, and the impact was not that strong. In any other market, I do not see any signs for an increase in banking tax. Well, what we are trying to promote is that this is the wrong way, because it always impacts the economies in the end. If you have these high banking taxes, then this aggravates the access to loans and capital. As to your first question, yes, Poland is part of Central and Eastern Europe. We want to be the leading bank in Central and Eastern Europe. We are present in practically all markets except for Poland, and so you understood this quite correctly. What was your question? Your other question again? Expectation of the stakeholders. Okay, a very important example. I would like to give to you the expectation of the investors, of the company, of the employees, is that on climate protection and ESG, that is to say environment, social and governance, we play a responsible role. This is very close to our hearts, and we've done a lot in the past to reduce our own ecological footprint. And in future, there will be major occurrences here. And this is a theme that has come to stay because it is part of our responsibility as a large player in this region. Our business model is how can we help customers in this transformation to a more sustainable business model, a more sustainable operating model. I don't think we should be afraid of this in any way. There are essential opportunities here, growth potential, investment potential, or as Mr. Bosik said at the beginning, Europe can play a major role here, an important role, can become a front runner here.
Well, in Austria, it's forbidden to charge customers negative interest on their deposits. The development is a bit different in Germany. What's Erste Group's position? What does that mean when it comes to fees and charges? Well, there is a Supreme Court judgment on that. We have no other way of doing it. As far as I understand our business, it's to be ruled out. Negative interest on private clients' deposits must be ruled out. We have practically zero interest, so it's an entirely different world. But we still have the responsibility to look after people's money, to preserve people's money, and charging negative interest is out of the question for us.
Du meinst, ich verlange zwar keine negativen.
So you're not charging negative interest, but I couldn't possibly charge customers a fee for looking after their money. I think the Consumer Protection Association would kill me within 8 hours.
Es gibt bereits einige Banken, die keine.
There are banks that no longer issue savings books, and there are customers that send away customers. What do you do if someone insists on having a savings book for drawing money or depositing money free of charge? Is that an issue for you? Well, savings books are no issue at all. We were the ones who invented savings books in this country. We're not going to be the first one to do away with it. But I think we do charge a certain fee when someone pays into a savings book or withdraws money. So the savings book will survive.
Herr Spatt, ich kann es Ihnen leider nicht ersparen, eine
I have to ask a question about the world economy in view of the hysteria about the coronavirus. Are you expecting distortions of the world economy, if not a recession? Well, it's much too early to say anything about that. It would be irresponsible to speculate. I think individual companies and individual sectors may suffer or may be confronted with challenges because of the supply chain. We really don't know for how long we have to deal with the corona issue. Well, what do we do about the corona topic? Our top priority is to make sure that our employees are in good health. We want to take preventive measures. We want to ensure occupational safety. What are we going to do if one or the other building has to be closed down under quarantine? How can we continue our business with a highly competent healthcare center which is working on this issue and communicating the necessary information? So the main point for us is the safety of our employees and our ability to provide our services. Markets are reacting nervously to whatever happens, but will that be reflected in growth or not? I don't know. A question about capital and capital repayment. You said that your target for the CET1 ratio was 13.5. We are above that. As of which level of capital do you intend to redeem excess capital in addition to the dividend, or will you keep that aside for potential M&As? How about a potential share buyback? This is what BAWAG did. Well, to give you a very brief answer, 13.5, as you said, is the management target, the lower limit for our CET1 ratio. And we said that the range is 13.5 to 14. Now, we happen to be right in the middle at 13.7, and we feel okay with that. An increased redemption of capital or the possibility of a share buyback may be an issue if over 2 to 3 quarters we remain above 14%. In that case, a share buyback would be an issue. As you know, it depends on our capacity for capital formation, and it also depends on regulatory requirement. CET5 CRR5 is around the corner, and we're engaged in an intensive exchange with the regulator, and we will inform you regularly on what the implications are. But for the time being, we feel at ease between 13.5 and 14. If we were above 14, we would have to discuss the issue of increased profit distribution if that continued for several quarters.
Ja, 2 Fragen hätte ich.
I have 2 questions. First, about the geographic expansion. You said that Poland is an interesting market, but you're not intending to go into any other big markets. We were just told that digitalization or the digital entry into Germany is on hold. Is that conceivable for the more distant future or not? And then I have a question about the NPL. Now, our core region will remain Central and Eastern Europe. As regards online banking, it doesn't make sense to draw borders, but wherever we are offering our classic business, and this is what we believe in having a physical presence in combination with a digital presence. This is what's going to happen in our core region. And as regards NPL, the NPL volume has been going down continuously. Do you intend to increase the coverage ratio to 100%? What's the target? We have no specific target. Now we are at 77%. That is coverage by risk provisions. If you were to increase collateral on this portfolio, we're way above 100% coverage. So we feel comfortable with our NPL coverage ratio, but it's not something that we are steering. We simply set up provisions we have to set up, and the coverage ratio will increase further because the NPL volume will continue to decline for some time.
Sie haben gesagt,
You said that you're not going to Germany with George because competition has been intensifying there with the challenger bank. Do you also feel the opposite effect? Is your business in Austria being attacked by the challenger banks? Are you coming under pressure? No, we haven't seen any major changes in recent years that concern us. When you look at market data, you will see that they're still quite traditional. There are the big banks with minor changes, and there is a block of others, and this others block is increasing in size, so there will be shifts in the longer run. There are two things. We were fortunate because we started early enough in dealing with this issue at the customer interface. And the second thing is that with the new challenger banks, they don't want to be a customer's main bank. I don't really know what's so sensational about offering a current account free of charge. The only online bank that had a long-term business model and that succeeded in having current accounts for salaries and wages is EasyBank, and EasyBank has existed for 15 or 20 years in Austria. The others just come up, they try to achieve breakthrough with a single product, but it's not sustainable. From today's perspective, the dynamic development in Germany is something we wouldn't have expected. Now everyone wants to go to Germany digitally.
Jetzt? Hi, ich wollte nachfragen.
You're interested in acquisitions. Do you have a budget? How much you want to spend on this? And you said that you did not bid for the M Bank. Were there any specific reasons for that? Well, we do not keep any money in hidden places, hoping that we'll invest them one time. We want to find the right growth and acquisition opportunities. Stefan Dörfler talked about our capital situation. In other words, within the capital that we have available, we can move well, of course. But if we have major acquisition goals, then we need a capital increase on the market. As to M Bank, this was certainly a target where we would have needed a capital market increase and transaction. And the reason why we decided against the M Bank, I'm not going to focus on this here, but we had good reasons. A microphone, please. In the investor information, this is mentioned on page 5. In Austria, we have a total volume of 170, 180 people more than in 2018. And in Central and Eastern Europe, we had 200 to 300 employees less. In Romania, you have the slowdown because. But that means that once a company left us, and this is why this figure distorts slightly. But this is what it says in the investor information. We talked about the coronavirus. Are there customers in the corporate business that have approached you and said that there may be difficulties, especially in the small and medium-sized enterprise business? It's a bit too early, Mr. Spalt. As Mr. Spalt has said, it's too early to make a forecast here. After the end of the first quarter, we'll see the actual impact. I don't want to comment on this right now. Supplementary remark on my part. I think it's the large corporations that will be affected first because of the delivery chains will be affected. I don't think that small and medium-sized enterprises will be the first one to be impacted by the coronavirus. Marek Milara.
Question for Mr. Spalt. You mentioned acquisitions. There may be some smaller banks on the Czech market up for sale. Would you be interested, or is a position of Erste Česká spořitelna on the market so dominant that you would not be interested?
Well, let's put it this way. The Czech market is an incredibly important market for us, so we will watch market developments. We've got a very strong, very large and very successful local bank with Česká spořitelna, as you know. So we're not dependent at all, and that is true for all of the other markets, on pursuing acquisition potential. But if and when something comes on the table, we would look at it. If it fits our strategy, if it fits our pricing ambition, and if it's digestible in terms of a sort of market position.
When I was member from Romania, and I'll have some questions about Romania. You mentioned the political risk as being somehow part of your core business and getting used with the political risk in the region for so many years. In Romania, do you see the political risk at this moment higher or lower than last year? Because we have new drafts of legislation, some others were...
Well, let me answer this in a way that I say it's certainly not lower. It's certainly not lower. A lot of things have already crystallized. So what we would really hope, we also on behalf of our employees in Romania who are really doing a great job in BCR, that stability and predictability will sort of come.
Did you... you had a one-off effect in your results, yes, given the Romanian situation with the savings banks. Did you calculate the exact amount of money that you'll have to pay at the end of March back to the states?
I don't know, or I don't want to sort of now talk about cash flows. We have built a provision, yes, in this context, which you know, of 153 million euro. This we have booked. This is, to the best of our knowledge, the maximum risk which we have there. We still hope that there will be a change of the situation so that Romanian savers are not being punished by something which would sort of be very unusual in the European context.
Will you ask the Romanian clients to pay for the amount of money that they will have to give back to the states, or the bank will assume to pay that amount of money for them, because actually the clients owe that money?
Yeah, this is exactly the point. If this ruling is upheld, the clients are required to repay. It's not something we're asking, it's something which is the reflection of the ruling.
But how things are going to happen? You will pay the money to the government, and then you will go against the client?
I do not want to sort of divulge into that at that stage. My hope is still that this ruling will be reversed.
Okay, and the macroeconomic outlook for Romania, does it give you more worries, or do you see more risks for this year, given the fact that we have the largest imbalances in Europe with the current account deficit and budget deficit?
Very important question. It is fair to say that we do have concerns. We have a twin deficit, as you know, which is never a very sustainable situation. So we do hope that also in the context of an excessive deficit procedure, which will take its toll, will be addressed. So yes, the situation where you have a budget deficit and a current account deficit is not something which you can sustain very long.
And one last question. In Romania, for the MREL requirements, I think it was the second market after Austria that you issued some special bonds for MREL. Is that one sufficient to cover the requirement?
I can take, if you don't mind, I can take this question. The overall construction of the MPE, the multiple point of entry resolution setup, specifies through the analysis of the risk weights and the balance sheet positions, the MREL requirements for the respective, so to say, resolution country. And for Romania, and as for all the other countries, there's an overall MREL target being specified that we step by step with the issuance activities will fulfill. The final figures are up to come, but definitely this was not the last transaction in this context. So the overall issuance will go on up until 23, 24. Yeah, so we are very happy that this transaction went extremely well, was very well received by the investors, and was a very good initial step. But there is more to come in order to fulfill the overall MREL requirement. This is true for Romania and true for all the other countries where we have MREL requirements to be fulfilled.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cristian Hoșuc. I'm from Ziarul Financiar Romanian. Mrs. Pal, for question, what is your opinion about the Romanian banking system? You were there in 2017, okay, only 1 year. Do you still have enough market to grow in Romanian? Because in 10 years, BCR is down.
Yeah, I think we have addressed that over the last couple of press conferences, and this is one of the things which I don't sort of want to comment differently. Market position is not the topic number one and the target number one. We believe that BCR is doing a very good job. They have been growing their result and their profitability, even though sort of the situation was very adverse. So stripped out from this building society one-off, they have delivered a very good result. So we have committed, let me put it this way, before the crisis, through the crisis, and after the crisis, we have shown huge commitment to the Romanian community, to the Romanian economy, and we have supported the economy by providing capital and liquidity through also very difficult times. And we still believe in BCR, we still believe in the Romanian market, even though sometimes it's getting tough, but we stick to believe in it.
Okay, if assets, okay, Mr. Strahel said that the assets is not the longer main target for you, and you mentioned also the things. What is the main target for Romanian?
The main target for Romania is the same as it's a target for all of the other banks. It's helping to support the economy to grow prosperity in the region where we are, so that we're here for retail customers, for corporate customers, on core banking products and services, in helping them to grow prosperity, in helping them to build prosperity. Peter Bosek has already indicated we're now at the beta version of George, which will be rolled out in Romania as well. So providing both physically as well as digitally services to the Romanian population is what BCR is here for, and hopefully very profitably through the cycle, and hopefully in a political context which gives us predictability and sustainability.
Okay, thank you.
So, if there is no more question, thank you very much. Vielen Dank fürs Kommen. Vielen Dank.
Thank you for having joined us, and I'm looking forward to meeting you again. Bye-bye.